Hey everybody, my name's Jake Cohen. I'm the founder of Step by Step B&B. We are a short-term rental revenue management company. And today I'm super excited because this is the first video in a series of videos that we are going to come out with where we're just answering questions that people have about revenue management. So with me on the call today is Sarah, who is our communications and social media expert. And she will be asking me all of the questions that came in from Facebook. And we're going to get through as many questions as we possibly can. These all came from our Price Your STR Facebook group. And this is a place where we are just trying to engage and help folks better understand pricing and revenue management in the Airbnb short-term rental space. So super looking forward to this video. I'm excited to get going. So Sarah, what do you have for me today?
Hello, everyone. So, as Jake mentioned, I'm Sarah, and I'm here to ask all of the questions that people asked in the group. And yeah, we're super excited about this. And to have like a good introduction for this session, one of the first questions people want to know is, when did you decide to start being a revenue manager? How long did you practice on your own Airbnbs before you felt ready to start managing others? And they're just asking for any tips and advices you may have for them.
Awesome. Yeah, revenue management was not something that I really was thinking about starting a business from. And the development of that is kind of interesting because I started my career in hospitality as a hotel manager. So my folks bought our first bed and breakfast property, which I lived on site on when I was 10 years old. So hospitality kind of runs through my veins because that's what I've been experienced in my whole life. When I graduated college, I took over management of the second small hotel property that my folks bought in Palm Springs, California. And we did a big renovation of that property and we went straight into the 2008 recession. So we had spent all of this money renovating this beautiful 1950s themed property, but our revenues were about half what we expected them to be. And what that did was it gave me some extra time to consider how could we increase revenue. And it got me looking around. At the time, I was looking at the Hilton, the Hyatt, the places in town that were doing revenue management. And at the time, none of the small hotels were doing that. So I signed up for a super complicated program called Synixis, and I learned how to do revenue management on the scale of Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, those types of things, because that's what it was designed for. I then implemented it in our small hotel, and it really helped us get to a place where we were okay and we were not concerned about losing our property. So after a number of years, we did get to a point where we felt good about where we were. I moved on and found a manager replacement. And over the ensuing 15 years, I opened a number of Airbnbs and we really loved the idea of an Airbnb property. And I felt like with technology, I could really dive in and be as good as anybody else without even being on site at the property. And so it was about 8 years that I was running my personal properties. I owned properties in Denver, in Steamboat Springs, in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I felt like I had a pretty broad level of experience because I had run these hotels in both a desert market and a lake market. But what really inspired me to get into revenue management was not, oh, I'm looking to start a business. It was actually my friends were asking me, Jake, I own the property next door to you. How come you always have more cars in your parking lot? How come you seem to be making more money than I am? And it was those conversations that spurred me to say, well, maybe I'm doing something different. And I did a small presentation for people and I showed them what I was doing. I said, I'm doing market research. I'm building out all these customizations and seasonal profiles and all these things. And all of my friends who were all very experienced in the short-term rental space said, we're not doing any of that. So one of those friends said, why don't you manage my 5 properties in 5 different cities over the summer? Let's just see what happens. So I did. And she had her best 3 months at all 5 properties. And that really spurred me to say, let me see if I can help other people with this. And I want everyone to understand that the main reason I'm in this business is to help people. Yes, making money is nice. Building my team and seeing them succeed has been phenomenal. But the main reason I got into the business was really because people were asking for my help. And definitely those early properties that we brought on, there was some experimentation and understanding that I needed to have because these were all new markets to me. These were places that I was not familiar with. So I had to really hone my skills on how do I analyze the market data to give me all of the information I need to make good decisions. And that is the process that I now teach all of our revenue managers. So I am actually not the day-to-day revenue manager of our properties that we manage. I am now the head coach of our company, and I get to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we have the best practices. But I have 4 amazing revenue managers that do the day-to-day revenue management. And I have to admit, they are better than I am because we all now interact as a team and we all learn from each other. And that is my favorite part about this business. So, tips and tricks for those of you who are looking to become revenue managers: one, absorb as much information as you possibly can out there. Hopefully, this YouTube video is something that is valuable to you, but also explore other avenues. Join our Facebook group, Price Your STR Facebook group, and ask questions. Go to Price Labs, watch their videos, be part of their trainings. I don't think there's anything that's in revenue management that you cannot learn. However, it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of time to truly understand it. So, hope that helps you.
Well, I think that's a very inspiring story for anyone who wants to follow that path. So thank you so much, Jake. And so let's go ahead to the second question. So one of the Facebook users was asking if the bookings lead time for June is 60 days, when should pricing adjustments be made? Should they be done exactly at 60 days, or is there a buffer period before making any changes?
Great question again. If your booking window is 60 days, let's first start by understanding what a booking window is. So most people just say booking window, but the technical term is actually median booking window. And what median means is in the middle, right? So if 60 is your median booking window, we have to understand that 50% of people booked before 60 days and 50% of people will book after 60 days. So the way I always like to think of this is it's a bell curve. So 60 is at the top of the bell, and then it falls off on both sides. So if we're at 60 at the top of the bell, there's some rules of thumbs that you can use with this. I think an easy one to think about is you take half of your median booking window. So 60 divided by 2 would be 30. So approximately 30 days is kind of the inside of your main booking window. And then on the other side, you could double it. So 60 times 2 would be 120. So between 30 days and 120 days, the vast majority of people are going to book. Now, there are times where this calculation doesn't work as well, and that's if your median booking window is either super long, like 300 days. It's unlikely that we need to double that to get our normal main booking window. Or if it's super short, like 5 or 10 days, and we say, well, our main booking window is double 5, which is going to be 10. Again, it feels like that's not quite enough. So all of the things that we talk about in revenue management, there are no hard rules. It's always kind of rules of thumb that we use. And those are things that can guide us, but we also have to listen to the market data and see what the market gives us back. And what I mean by that is, are you getting bookings? If you are, then you're on the right track. If you're not getting bookings, you're not on the right track and you need to make some changes to your plan. So if I was looking at this, I would feel like, say your goal occupancy for that month is, say, 60%. If that's the case, when you hit 60 days, which is your median booking window, you ideally want to be approximately 30% occupancy because that is half of your goal, right? And we know the median should be half of our bookings at that point. If you're below that number, then you probably need to do something with your pricing to spur more bookings. If you're above that number, then maybe you can raise your price a little bit and get a little more ADR out of your future bookings. Hope that helps.
Great. One quality that Jake has is that he's a great teacher. So I'm guessing this is going to be super helpful for everyone who's interested. So great. So let's hop on to the next question. So there was someone asking, should I use occupancy-based adjustments option on price labs? It seems really interesting, but to me, but I need more info.
Cool. I'm going to share my screen for this. I'm going to just try and hop in and show you where this is because there's probably a lot of people out there that are not even really sure what what does occupancy based adjustment even mean. So let's get into a listing that I own and let's take a look at something so that we can get a better understanding of what that looks like. Make sure I set myself up for success here and share the right screen. I am in a new office and sometimes I make mistakes. So, Sarah, are you seeing Price Labs on my screen here?
Yep, I'm seeing price labs.
Perfect. All right. I love when I do things the right way. So, all right. So, first of all, where you would go to look at this is in this customizations section. So if we click on edit customizations, the easiest way to see all of your customizations is click the drop down for all customizations. And what this person was asking us about is this occupancy based adjustment. Okay. So an occupancy based adjustment is changing what you do based upon your occupancy. It's exactly what it sounds like, right? We are adjusting based on occupancy. And you can see that there's all these different ways that you can do that. So let's just click one of these and let's talk about it. Okay. So let's try aggressive and let's click edit profile. So let's first talk through what we're seeing here. So this top row here is date ranges, okay? 0 to 15 days, 16 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days. You can make these date ranges anything you want them to be. So it's important to understand that occupancy-based adjustments can be used as last-minute discounting or premium, which is what we're doing here. Or you could use them, say, as a far out premium. If you want to make sure that no one books for too little far out, you could set up your days as something like 90, oh, 90 to 360. Okay. And we could set it up and we could say anything that is less than or equal to 100% occupancy, we want to have a 20% premium from 90 to 360 days. So that's one application that you could use this for. You could also use it as a discounting feature. So if you wanted to discount last minute, you can see basically what we're doing here is a discount structure. So if you're at 100%, if you're between 80 and 100% occupancy, there is no discount. But if you're below 80% occupancy, it starts at a 5% discount. And you can see it goes all the way up to a 30% discount if you're down at 10% occupancy. So I think the concept of this is great. The part that is a little difficult is when you have things that happen a little out of the norm. So, if we're talking about 0 to 15 days, we're talking about 2 weeks. If you have a period of time where you have no bookings during those 2 weeks, but everything outside of that is heavily booked, it doesn't see the rest of it, right? It's just seeing that particular period of time. So I want you to understand that there are some times where this can really hurt you. So I'll give you an example of what I thought was a bad time to use something like this. So if I had this implemented, and in Steamboat, we're very, very dependent upon snow because snow is our main industry here. People come to ski. So I think it was 2 years ago, we had very little snow, and it really didn't start snowing much until mid-December. Normally, by mid-December, I'm at least 50% occupancy for my whole winter. And in this case, I was really struggling with occupancy, like probably 10 or 15% occupancy. But I knew the reason I was struggling was because we didn't have snow. It was not because demand was not there or anything like that. It was because people were waiting to make sure that they didn't book a trip in February where there was going to be no snow. So what I did was I held all my prices right where they were. I didn't let myself drop down. And as soon as we started getting snow in mid-December, things started to book up very quickly. Now, if I had a situation like this in place, let's look at, say I was at 10% occupancy for that period of time. Well, people would be booking 60 days ahead at a 15% discount. I don't want them booking at a 15% discount because I'm waiting for the snow to come and then I'm going to get the price that I want. So the downside of using any of these features like this is you want to be very careful and you want to really think through all of the applications of them. Is there going to be a time where this is going to really hurt me by having this in place? And I think with anything, you need to make sure that you customize this for your particular market. If you have a very short booking window where the majority of people book within the last 15 days, this is not going to serve you well because you're going to be discounting for everybody. Okay. If you're in a market that has a super long booking window, you may need to be careful with something like this because you may actually price yourself out of the market because you're going to have, these additional prices on top of your price. My goal with my properties is always to get as close to 100% occupancy as possible. So I don't really want to discourage people from booking as long as my prices are appropriate. So there's goods and bads with this. We do use this, but the way we use it is as a step down discounting structure that we use as we get closer in. And the reason I like to use it for step down discounting is because Airbnb likes seeing you drop 5 or 10% at once, as opposed to a gradual discount, which is only 1% a day. So I really like it for something like that. Just do your research and make sure you fully understand what you're doing.
Great. Thank you, Jake, so much. So for the next question, I hope I'm reading it correctly. As Jake mentioned, I'm the social media and communications, not the revenue manager, but okay, so someone is asking, it seems the natural tendency for last minute bookings often see a big price drop of 20 to 30%. And he's asking, would it be more effective to increase rates by 10 to 15% instead of if there are still openings 2 to 3 days before?
I guess it depends on where you are in the market. So, I'll share my screen again and let's take a look at an example situation so that we can kind of better understand where it might make sense to do something like this and where it would not make sense to do something like this. So, As with anything in revenue management, it depends, is a great answer, right? So let's look at a few different times in my market. This is Steamboat Springs. As you can see in Steamboat Springs, there's really no times where we exceed 75% occupancy. So when you're in a market where you never exceed 75% occupancy, it's very, very hard to decide last minute to add a premium to your property. And the reason I say that is because people still have 25% of the available listings in the market, even if we're at 75%, to pick from last minute. And most of the time, unless your property is super unique, they're going to choose someone else who's priced cheaper, not someone who's adding to their price. Now, it's always important to also remember you did not get booked previously at your lower price. So by adding more to the price that you were at, you're probably not going to rent it because people had lots of time to book your property previously at a lower price and they did not rent it. Now, the caveat to this, and when I would potentially do this, is if you look at your occupancy chart and you said, oh my gosh, we're at 99% occupancy. I am literally the only place left. Or, you know, 98% occupancy. There's only two or three places left in my market for some super important event. Yes, that could be a good play during those times because you're now not competing against everybody else in the market. You're just competing against the one or two other people that are still available. And when you realize you're in a situation like that, the ball is kind of in your court because you know that there's still demand and people want to come for those dates, then you may be able to charge a premium. So, yes and no, and it depends.
Great, Jake. Thank you so much. So, this last one is a cool question. So, there was someone saying that they were curious about how you would approach this situation. So, you have a home in a market with 2,000 active short term rentals in a healthy market with a strong demand. How would you create your comp sets? Assume the location within the market doesn't matter much, and each property type, for example, two bed, one bath, three bed, two baths, etc., has hundreds of listings. What key factors would you focus on when selecting properties to compare your listings to?
That's a very involved question. And let's dive in again. I'll share my screen one more time here. So when we're talking about market data and comp sets, generally where we want to be is the market dashboard. So those of you that are not familiar with the market dashboard, you click on market research, you go to market dashboards, and it costs $9.99 a month to have a market dashboard active. I think this is one of the best things you can do as far as market research to better understand your market, and it only costs you 10 bucks a month. So for me, big positive. Every single one of our clients, every listing we manage has an active market dashboard so that we can be in there and make sure that we have the most accurate and up-to-date information. So when we're talking about comp sets, there is this section here that's called listings and comp sets. And what we can do in this area is we can decide based on star rating, number of reviews, price, active nights, bedrooms, all of these things, what we want to see in a comp set. So this person is asking and saying, well, I'm in a market where there's lots of two-bedroom properties and they all are very similar and location doesn't matter that much. So how do I choose a comp set? So I would start by just start in your market dashboard and create a comp set. And you'll be surprised at how fast you end up with fewer. So Steamboat Springs has about 3 to 4,000 active rental units. I am subscribed to a market dashboard that I think has, I don't know, 1100. Oh, let me scroll out here so we can see all of the listings here. So we'll just let this update real quick. But for the Airbnb whole market, we have over 1,000 listings in this particular market dashboard that we're looking at. So let's use two bedrooms as they're probably the most abundant in this market. And let's use that as our example. So the first thing that you want to do when you're looking to make a comp set is you want to first show all of the columns that are important. So the columns that are important are the ones that are going to affect your revenue greatly. So in my market, that would be pets. We don't have any sort of water, so we don't have to worry about any of those. Hot tub is a big deal. If you have a pool, that's kind of unique in the market, so that could be something that changes. We always want to see occupancy and revenue. And then you also have radius. And I think radius is maybe the other one that I would think about in this situation. So I'm going to go ahead and show all of those now on my screen. And you can see if we scroll this way, we now see all of those here on my dashboard. So we still are looking at the whole market right now. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is filter for number of bedrooms. So I go ahead and click two bedrooms. And then you want to filter by star rating, right? Because star rating, you have some that are NA, some are going to be below the level that you feel your property is at. If you're in here and you're doing this market research, chances are you're a pretty good host. So you can probably filter out, say, all listings that are below, I don't know, 4.7, 4.8, something like that. Say, okay, above 4.8. And you can see we went from many pages to down to 19 pages. Okay. And each of these pages has 10 or less. So already we're down to, 190 or less. Okay. If you have any other distinctive features like a hot tub, or you allow pets, or you have a pool, any of those things will probably bring this down quite a bit. So, hot tub is a pretty normal one in our market, but let's say hot tub. So we lost a couple of pages from hot tub. If we used pool, you can see we lost about 5 pages from pool. If we go to pets, there's probably almost none. Only have 4 listings that allow pets. 2 or 3 of those are mine. 3 of them are mine. So those are things that would greatly reduce, right? If you hit a point though where you don't feel like there's that much that can be reduced, there's a couple other things that I would encourage you to look at. So active nights, 177. That's about half the year. I really don't want to look at properties that only compete with me part of the year. I'd like to look at properties that compete with me most of the year. So I'm going to do again another filter and say I only want to see properties that have more than, say, 240 active nights a year. You can see now we're down to 13 pages. And then you can do a couple other things here if you want to. So if you know your general price range, you could do something there. If you realize that you don't want properties with less than, say, 20 reviews because you want established properties, we could continue to bring this down. We're now down to 7 pages. So we can continue to go through this process until we hit a point where we feel pretty good about what we have here. The next step would be then to what I call scrub the data. And scrubbing the data means that you're going to click on every Airbnb listing and you're going to confirm, is this a true comp for my property? So the things you're looking for are, does this have significantly better design? Does it have better photos? Does it have, is it a ski in, ski out condo in our market instead of something that's a mile away? If your property is a mile away, you don't want to compare it to a ski in, ski out condo because your revenue will be skewed in a ski out, ski out, ski in, ski out condo. So all of these things are ways to further refine your comp set. In my opinion, if you're able to have 50, 60 plus properties in your comp set, that's to your advantage. You don't really want to pare it down more as long as those are true comps. I know what we do in our revenue management is when we are looking at market data, very rarely do we only look at the comp set that we created. So if we look at this, I'm looking at all three bedrooms in my market. That is my comp set. But I also have a much smaller comp set called best three bedrooms. That's the one that are actual comps for my property, but I switch back and forth between them. So if you are able to create a comp set that has, say, 50, 60, 70, 100 listings that are all true comps, it only gives you better data and more accurate ways to predict what your pricing should be. So I think that's to your advantage.
Okay, great. That was a cool question to get into. So the last one, but not least. So there's this person who says that they see there's like a gray line between a mid-scale property and a high-scale property. So they are asking, how would you decide if your property is within economy, mid-scale, or high-scale?
And it is difficult to understand where your property will fall in a given market. I think the gray line that they're talking about, let me see if I can take a little bit of information off of this page so we can see something more particular. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I?
No, you're not.
Let me share my screen. Okay, so if we're looking at market data here, I'm going to just pull off some of this information so that it's a little easier for us to see what is going on. But if we look here during Christmas break, you can see the striations. So you can see that the white down below is the lowest 25th percentile. Then you have 25 to 50th is this gray area, then 50th to 75th, and 75th to 90th, and then above 90th would be above that. So when they're talking about that gray line, I think what they mean is the top of this gray in their market data that they're talking about. So base price is one of those things that is, you know, Price Labs wants you to set a base price. And when you click on this help me choose a base price tool, it asks you, are you economy, are you mid-scale, or are you upscale? And the only way to really know that is to know your market. It's to understand what is available in your market. So, does your property have the same amenities as everyone else in the market, or does it not? Is it located near the things everybody wants to go to, or is it not? Those are all factors that are going to say where do you fall in this economy, mid-scale, or upscale range. So I think what you have to do is you have to look at everyone around you. And ideally, the best way to do that is to do the comp set that we did at earlier part of this video to better understand what's available in your market and what am I comparable to, and then see where that falls in the market. So the interesting thing about using this base price tool is a lot of people think that this does some sort of calculation. The reality is it does not. This is simply it's giving you the math without you having to export to an Excel spreadsheet and try and figure out where you are. And it just gives you the opportunity to choose economy, which is the 25th percentile of the market, mid scale, which changes to the 50th percentile of the market, and upscale, which is the 75th percentile of the market. So it's always important for us to understand that no matter what your property is, it's very rare that you're going to be right at the 50th percentile, right at the 75th percentile. Most likely you're adjusting either up or down. So understand that when you put in your base price, it's a hypothesis. And then you need to test it from what the market gives back to you. Do you get a lot of bookings very quickly? Maybe your price is too low. bring it up. If you're not getting very many bookings or you're getting zero bookings, your price is too high. You need to bring it down. And maybe it's time to do a little more market research and be more realistic about where does my property sit in this market. Another thing to understand, listing optimization is very much going to play into this as well. So what I mean by that is if you have phenomenal photos and you show up on page one, you're probably pushing those higher limits of what your property truly is because you're you're at the top of the market. Everyone is seeing you, so you're most likely to get booked. If you don't have good photos and you're showing up on page 20 in your market, you're probably very much at the bottom end of your market, even if your amenities are comparable to an upscale property, because you're not showcasing them properly. So it's always important to understand that all of these answers are pertinent and they are pieces to the puzzle, but they're not the only piece to the puzzle. There's lots of things that are intertwined that are bringing together, that are bringing you your total pricing strategy. And highly encourage you to continue to work on it. If you have more questions, we would love to see them come out in that Price Your STR group so that we can continue to answer them for you here on our Q&A sessions.
Thank you so much, Jake, for answering all of these questions. I have a feeling people will enjoy and learn a lot from this. So, as Jake mentioned, I am in charge of communications and social media, so you will be seeing my face more often from now on. And well, as Jake was saying, I'm sure you guys have more questions, so you can go ahead and drop them in the comments, or once we post another question and answers, you can drop your questions there so we can make more of these videos. And yeah, if you're interested of knowing more about what we do and how our revenue managers work, you can go to our website that it's stepbystepbnb.com, and you can book a free consultation call with one of our revenue managers. And also don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us as Step by Step BNB.